this computer. Beautiful. So, yeah, this is the education that I give to the core students. I'll give this again. I've given this education at PGA seminars. So probably the biggest one was in Arizona. And I used these slides and I discussed effective practice. I use the same slides and the same presentation with our kids. I just probably deliver it in less of a academic way, more of a fun way, just try and involve them a little bit more than if I'm presenting to X amount of people. I did this for the LPGA as well. And the reception was generally pretty good, even though it pushes some people's beliefs, right? Like there's an underlying belief in the golf industry that kind of opposes this. So when the US and during the Vietnamese War, the US were losing fighter pilots at a ratio of 1 to 1. So of course, this is an awful statistic, right? Something that the US wanted to change. And the way they went about changing it was the way they trained their pilots. So the Top Gun school was launched. So I'm going to play you a little bit from one of the greatest films of all time. With the sequel's pretty good as well. I just watched it recently. But if you listen very closely to what they say at the start, and then if you watch the video, I'll discuss a little bit about why golf could benefit from this. Dr. Anders Ericsson was one of my mentors. He wrote the book Peak, and he highlights this whole case study in Peak as why we need to train athletes differently. So I've really just taken Peak, and instead of reciting what he wrote, I just screen recorded little bits of the film. So yeah, this is an introduction to what the military did to respond to that terrible statistic of having fighter planes shot down at a ratio of 1 to 1.
Gentlemen, this is your first hop. The jets you are flying against are smaller, faster, and more maneuverable, just like the enemy MiGs. The clock is ticking, and as of now, we are keeping score.
I still got him. He's still back there. Come on, man. Just some of that pilot shit. Yeah, I got him.
Figured right.
I've had about enough of this shit. Hit the brakes, I'll fly right by.
Okay, you're mine.
Now, Chester. Okay, man, let's turn and learn. Chester's dead. Chester's dead.
So right at the start of the video, you're going to be scored. You're going to be timed. The enemy minks are designed to replicate the minks you'll be flying against. Smaller, faster, more maneuverable. So what the US did was they made training extremely unsafe. They decided to recreate and simulate the exact situations that these pilots would face in battle. So now, instead of being in a simulator or instead of being protected during training, training was like the real thing, and to some extent, maybe harder. So the outcome of that was that terrible statistic, the 1 to 1 ratio of losing fighter planes, after Top Gun School was launched, that terrible statistic changed 12 to 1 in favor of the US. And Dr. Anders Ericsson cites the recreation and simulation of situations you'll face in battle transferring skills, transferring from practice to the real thing. So we saw on the first video, I'll hit the brakes, he'll fly right by. Now check out the actual battle.
Move, there's a big undertail, there's a big undertail. Got a problem here, we've only got one missile left.
Approaching 110 miles, sir.
God damn it. I got him, he's right on us. Between our tails. You haven't lost him, he's still with us. What are you doing? You're slowing down, I'm bringing him in closer, Merlin. You're gonna do what? This is it, Maverick. I'm gonna hit the brakes, he'll fly right by. Shit, he's gonna get a look at us. Fire him.
Boom.
So I'll hit the brakes, he'll fly right by. In practice, I'll hit the brakes, he'll fly right by. In battle. Now, there's enough evidence that if he'd have learned that move in a simulator, it would not have transferred into battle. And ultimately, that's what the Top Gun school did. So when I'm looking at a student, I'm thinking about the Top Gun school. I'm thinking about how do we take this image on the left, which is super safe, looks nice, provides everything that we desire to feel good about ourselves, not to get better at golf. And how do we take that and make it do this?
Right.
So core practices, every single one of core practices has a portion, at least 1 hour of simulated gameplay that recreates and simulates situations that our students are going to face on the golf course. Outcomes, problems to solve, chaos, stress, different lies, different shots, failure, dealing with adversity, pre-shot routine. So we take that and we put it into the practice arena. Because if we do that, the skills we're learning in practice are more likely to transfer to the golf course. So from an academic standpoint, the 3 keys to learning, the 3 keys that will help form connections in the brain that will retain over time and allow movements to transfer to the golf course are the spacing effect. So space is time between a shot. On the golf range, the spacing effect is almost non-existent. Golfers are getting hold of a feeling and keeping it. They are not losing a feeling and learning to recall it. And, you know, when you played in the USAM, you hit driver on 9.
Yep.
25 minutes later, you hit driver on 10. You don't hit driver on 11. You don't hit driver on 12. There's a lot of time between those drivers. So when you're out there trying to perform, you're losing a feeling and trying to recall it. You're not getting hold of a feeling and keeping it.
Yeah.
Is what most people's practice is built around.
Wow.
So even just your average golfer, if Core Golf, the performance center that I'm at, if we didn't give them a bucket, if they paid $20 and their 100 golf balls or whatever it was distributed to them 1 a minute, they would become better golfers. Because that minute, there's more space. So you hit the ball, 59 seconds later, the next ball appears. What did I do on that last rep? Let me think about it. What did I move? What? And that helps us learn. So we need some we need to increase the space between repetitions. Variability, this would be changing of task. So all too often on the golf range, a golfer is going to get their favorite club. It's probably a 7-iron or an 8-iron. A junior golfer is probably a driver.
Yep.
And that's the thing they're going to use. And you go down a golf range, you look at in a bag, you'll be able to tell that's your favorite club or that's your favorite club. Because they use that one club and they're working on the same thing. So the average golfer, push draw 7-iron, push draw 7-iron, push draw 7-iron, push draw 7-iron. Then on the golf course, they've got it. They've got the feeling. It's easy for them to access. On the golf course, they want to hit push draw 7-iron, but it's the first 7-iron of the day, and this is the 8th hole. And they've been hitting it thin, and now they've got a hanging lie. Oh, what are you going to do? They don't know because they've not practiced in a way that introduces that variability. On the golf course, they haven't got this feeling and held on to it. They have to recall it. So variability in task. And then challenge. There should always be some form of challenge. Even when you're working on technique, there should be some level of, wow, this drill's pretty hard, or this drill's hard for me to remember, or even linking points to it. So self-measuring, or the drills that you're going into, or what you're having to do with a task is one way to manipulate challenge. Okay. You're striving for a higher score. You're striving to do this task better than you did previously. And there's a measure to that. Or increased space and increased variability in turn increases the challenge of the practice. So this is not a practice circuit for you because you're good enough to play in the USAM. So your circuit's coming next. Okay. This is a practice circuit for the average golfer. So average golfer gets 10 balls, hits one ball every 10 minutes, working on the grip drill that the coach has given them. And maybe they have to grip the club correctly, grip the club the old way, grip the club correctly, and then hit the golf ball. They do that 10 times. They go to the bucket, they get the ball, and they play the center strike game. They have to hit it out the toe, out the heel, and out the center. And they just rotate between those different targets on the club face, and they get 1 point every time they're successful. They do that 10 times. They go back to the bucket, they get 10 more balls, and they revert back to the grip drill. And what we have there is we have a little more space. We have a little more variability in task. And for a golfer that can get the ball in the air and wants to get better, that is a nice circuit. If a golfer can't get the ball in the air, that might be the only time, or even hit the ball, that might be the only time you just let them stay in one place and hit balls.
Yeah.
That task alone has the optimal challenge point for a beginner, just hitting the ball.
Yeah, just getting the ball in the air. Okay, I understand that, yeah.
It might be 50 balls. We're just going to try and hit these in the air. Let's go.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But once you show some level of skill that you can strike the ball and get it moving forward somewhat directionally, you need to then start adding more space, more variability, and more challenge. And this is a good way for the average golfer to do that. Now, this would be more what I would give you. And again, our kids at Core Golf Academy, there's a few that would be on that previous one.
Yeah.
Newer to golf. And there's a few that would be on this kind of circuit. Most of our kids are somewhere in between this. So this is more the elite level. So some of the LPGA players that I've worked with, I would put through this. Some of the really good college players, I would put through this. I guess some tour players I've worked with, a couple of guys on the European tour, I've tried to put them through this and they resisted it. They didn't like it, right? Because they already got good doing what they were doing. So station 1, 2 golf balls, working on your technique. You make a good swing, practice swing. You make your old swing, practice swing. You make a good swing, practice swing. You hit the ball. We call that the sandwich drill. You sandwich your old motion in between the 2 desired. You do that twice. You then have to hit 3 pitch shots to a target. 2 of them have to go inside PGA Tour proximity before you're allowed to go on to the next technical station. At the next technical station, you close your eyes and you feel your way through the golf swing without moving. You do that 3 or 4 times, and then you hit a ball to the target. Then you repeat that, and that's your 2 balls, 2 technical balls at station 2 done. Then you go here, and you have to 2 putt from 30 feet, 2 putt from 40 feet, 1 putt from 6 feet to then be allowed to the next station.
So you're training right now. You're training your brain to remember, basically, right?
You are training your brain to forget and learn to recall, which ultimately is to remember. There's a passage in my book that starts off, to forget is to remember.
Okay.
But yeah, these technical reps are hard. Deep, deliberate, purposeful practice. And the variability is provided, a lot of the variability is provided that there's a performance task separating each technical station. So this station is 5 balls, 20% speed, 40%, 60, 80, 100, working on technique. So all of this is training to learn. Here, we were learning the grip. Here, we were learning to hit the ball in the center of the face. 10 shots, and the spacing effect is provided by just walking to the bucket and getting the 10 balls and not having them laid out in the hitting zone next to you. Here, we're training to learn a golf swing, but there's 3 stations instead of 2. There's a lot less balls being hit at the stations. The drills are more demanding, and the spacing effect isn't just walking to the bucket. The variability effect isn't just walking to the bucket and getting the balls. There's lots of space and lots of variability because you have to actually complete a performance task to be allowed back into the technical circuit. So here, 10, relatively straightforward drill, get 10 balls, 10, relatively straightforward drill.
Okay.
Here, movement drill, very complex, PGA Tour, proximity challenge, movement drill, very, very complex, very hard to do. Putting challenge, it's very demanding, takes a lot of focus. And then here, a technical drill that's very demanding, repeat. And this is what I believe as well. For a young kid that wants to go to college, one of the biggest issues that I see is that they have sore wrists, they have injured backs. I see that they're pretty burned out. When I've worked with young tour players, PGA Tour Canada, PGA Tour Latin America, they're at the golf club for 12 hours. They spend 6 hours hitting balls. That lacks space, lacks variability, lacks challenge, is more likely to burn you out and is more likely to get you injured. if you practice this way, it's more optimal for your body and it's more optimal for your brain. So you can do less of it. You can do less of it because it's more effective. It's not.
In a sense, less is more here, right? Like if you do it correctly and you kind of like buy into this system, like, I mean, I never thought about practicing like this. And again, I have a bad back because I've hit a bunch of balls.
Yeah.
You know, like
and if you're going to play pro or if you're going to play in college, your body is critical.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people look at how the club is moving around the body rather than actually protecting the body it's going to move around. This is not only in line with science and research and helping making swing changes stick. This is in line with protecting the wrists and the back and not having kids turn up to college burn out, not having kids sit for 6 hours a day in an environment where it's not really going to transfer into tournament play. So it's not the hours you put in, it's what you put into the hours. And from where I'm sat right now, and maybe this will change, I hope it does change, but this is the most effective way that I can figure out to learn a mechanical change in line with the science and research, etc. that I've read. Right. And look, people have made mechanical changes not doing it this way. So Tiger Woods, beat balls. Serena Williams, beat balls. But I think that they have this ridiculous ability to stay engaged in the task no matter what. I think the mere mortals among us, the normal humans, when we're just hitting balls, I think we disengage from the task. This, I believe, keeps engagement high. So unless Serena Williams or Tiger Woods walks through your door and you strike the gold mine, most people, I think, will benefit from this. But also, Tiger's had a lot of injuries, and I do wonder if this could have changed his path maybe a little bit regarding his physical conditioning. Right. But we'll never know. So, Colin, that was training to learn, right?
Yeah.
We really looked there at the mechanical stuff and what I've learned from reading science and research and what I've learned from Dr. Erickson and what I've learned from Dr. Tim Lee, a motor learning expert. There's a great channel called Lasting Learning on YouTube, 2 to 3 minute videos that really help you understand a lot of this. I've learned a lot of that from scientists, motor learning experts, trial and error. And I've seen that help people make technical change and retain those technical changes over time in a more effective way. Now we're talking about training to perform.
Right.
You're at the USAM. How did you prepare for that? And that previous stuff, probably not the best, right? Too much movement, not enough external focus, not enough target, not enough going to play. So the philosophy is the same. Training to learn, we just did. Spacing, variability, and challenge. Training to perform, we're going to do now. Spacing, variability, challenge. So if we watch this video, I will very, very rarely, and we spoke about this on the phone, I will very, very rarely let one of my students play a game in isolation. I will always do what's called interleaving. So they're going to play one or more games at the same time. So I have a video example of this. So this is a good college player. He's going to chip this golf ball and he's playing a landing zone challenge. So we use a random number generator to tell him which quadrant he's got to land the ball in. And he lands the ball in that quadrant, he gets a point. Now, the reason that we're doing this is his chipping stats suggested that he wasn't chipping as well as he could. And he thinks coupling flight and landing zone is a bit of a problem for him. So that's why we're doing this game. Statistical feedback and his feedback. And if we play this game in isolation, this guy shot 29 around the back nine of TPC Sawgrass. So if we allow him to hit that shot into that quadrant and he gets a point, and then he goes and hits this golf ball into this quadrant and get a point, he's got readily available information from this first shot that he can be applied into the second shot that he will not have in a tournament. Even though it's random practice, it's not random enough for someone of his level. And you know that, right? If in the USAM they'd have said, hey, this is actually where your golf ball finished, but we'll let you hit a chip shot from here, freebie, you'll be like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Even though it's different, there's still information, how the club felt in his hands, how the strike was on the grass, how the dew was, how the ball reacted on the green, where's the grain, you know, all of that. Was my tempo slightly out? Now I can recorrect my tempo for this next shot. So what I like to do, and a lot of the coaches that learn through game like training, etc., he hit shot one from game one. Now he's hitting shot one from game two. So a shot shaping game with different lies.
So he's in a divot there.
Yeah, we put him in a divot there. And this was his strength. His iron play is phenomenal, and his chipping was an area for development. So we're letting him practice his strength as well. So shot one, game one, shot one, game two, shot one, game three. So game three is proximity. So we're hoping he takes a little bit of what he's learning from the landing zone game and applying it into this game. So now he has to walk all the way back round, shot two, game one. Shot two, game two. Shot two, game three. Shot three, game one. And at the end of the day, 3 games that all have 9 points available. But what most players are going to do, most players are going to play those games in isolation and think they're engaging in random practice, but it's not difficult enough. It's not doing what the Top Gun school wants you to do and is telling us to do. It's not doing what the research is telling us to do, which is create spacing, variability, and challenge in practice. Recreate and simulate situations you're going to face on the golf course. So a lot of the time on the golf course, you'll hit an iron, you'll have a walk, and then you'll hit a chip. You know, so we're getting closer to the game of golf. We're trying to recreate and simulate the game of golf. Another way we do that, so that's called interleaved practice. This would be called serial practice. So I'm big into, well, I was big into CrossFit. I'm trying to get back there now. And they have WOD of the day, workout of the day. And I was like, I could never do a muscle up. I could never do double unders. There was I'm sure, handstand push-ups. There was so much that I couldn't do. Yeah, skipping, double unders. Yeah, I could never do them.
Really?
Never do them. Couldn't get muscle ups. Couldn't get handstand push-ups. Now, I went to CrossFit, and they might do in some sessions 5 to 10 minutes of practice of a skill at the start. But then what happens was you're thrown into the session and you are told, just try the double unders in the session. Don't worry about failing, just go. And after about 6 months at CrossFit, I could do all the skills pretty well. But I never got sent away to a safe environment to learn them and repeat them over and over again. Everything I learned was in the context of the workout. So I thought, I wonder if I can create a golf, like what they do in CrossFit, a golf out of the day. So I started to do this for some of my students and share it out there. And it's actually, you know, what I learned from CrossFit. The key word there is context. The workout of the day, I'm tired. I've done some other skills. I'm racing against the clock. There's other people around me. Barbells are clanging. My self-talk's probably not as good as it would be if I was in a safe environment, just practicing a move with no outcome. So the skills that I was learning stuck. And I want that for golfers. So golf out of the day is a game that you can do on the range. Here we have a driver into a 45-yard wide fairway, a 9-iron inside 10 feet of your target, and then a 3-foot putt. You do all these 3 in a row, and you check off that box.
Yeah.
You miss one of these.
Start over.
Start over. For some students, start over. For other students, you have to get up and down before you're allowed back in the game, or you have to hold an 8-foot putt before you're allowed back in the game. For other students, timeout. 3-minute time penalty. Sit down. We call it a core. Coach Luke calls it jail. You're in jail. Because we're going to give them an hour to try and complete all 4 grids. If you get a timeout, if you get sent to jail and you lose 3 minutes of your hour, this 3-foot putt, you don't mess around with this 3-foot putt because you want to hold it. You go through your whole routine. You go through your whole process. If you kicked out the game and you're trying to get up and down, you probably start rushing. You probably start losing your process. You probably start getting outcome focused. That's a great coaching moment for a coach to step in and get you to breathe, etc. So we're recreating and simulating situations they're going to face on the golf course. This was designed for a European tour player, so you should probably manipulate. We were working on him making more birdies. So you should probably manipulate the proximity to the targets. But I've done this. It was actually Stuart Morgan, who's a phenomenal golf coach, sort of started to introduce me to this concept when he'd done some reading on serial practice. And it was his idea for the timeout. He calls it stand or deliver. And it just puts pressure. There's no pro golfer, there's no junior golfer that wants, and you know, no phone in jail, no golf club, like you're out, it's done.
Right.
And kids don't like it. So we are no longer in a safe environment. We're in an environment which actually we could say this is harder than golf, which is great to train to perform in, not necessarily great to train the mechanics. You know, at some point we got to connect those dots, but this might have a bit too much contextual interference going on for someone who would be focused on their swing mechanics. If you're in this, you've got to be focused on your routine. You've got to be focused on your process. You've got to be taking that extra deep breath. You've got to be working on your self-talk, your target focus, whatever your controllable goals are. That's the mindset that we want when we're going into a performance task. We do not want to take a technical learning mindset into this task. And then obviously the golf course. So another example of training to perform, and I'll just play you this. On-course challenge, the eliminator. During this on-course task, a player will choose the side of the hole they want to eliminate for the tee shot. In this instance, the player has chosen to eliminate the left side. Any ball that lands to the left of the fairway will be given a 2-stroke penalty. The player will then play an approach shot, selecting which side of the flag they want to eliminate. In this instance, the player has chosen to eliminate the right side of the flag. Any ball that lands to the right side of the flag will be given a 2-stroke penalty. Once the approach shot has been hit, the player should continue to play as normal from around the green, attempting to shoot the lowest score that they can. So the power of play is definitely underestimated. You give a kid that game, and you can even manipulate the rules, right? Instead of the stroke penalties, what we do sometimes when we, at the core academy, when we go to the on course, if they miss it on the side they've eliminated, it's 50 yards back. If they hit it somewhere else, it's 25 yards forward. If they hit it to the wrong side of the pin, the side they've eliminated, plug bunker shot. If they hit it to the side that they said they were going to and it's on the green, automatic 8-foot putt for birdie. If it's off the green and not in the trash, 20-foot putt for birdie. And if it's in the trash, basic chip shot. So the rules of the game actually change the behaviors of the child, and they become more strategic. I've had students play this and tell me, I'm playing this in my next tournament. It helps me play better. Now, you know from working with junior golfers, you try and instruct strategy, try and teach them strategy. They're going to say, that's not what I saw on the Golf Channel in the last 9 holes of the Players' Championship. I'm going at this pin because I need a birdie. Never a good strategy, right? Not even on tour sometimes. So constraints-led learning, manipulating the environment, manipulating the rules of the game to create a desired behavior. Super powerful. And it's always good to involve the child in the design of the game. It's always good to involve the child, make sure they clearly understand why. We are playing this game, why? Well, coach, because we think it will help us with strategy. Yeah. We hit it short side too often. This will prevent that from happening if we do well in this game. You know, involve them. And then a recap is very important. So really, to sum up super quick, spacing, variability, and challenge, that's the academia, because it's going to create context, and we're going to lose the feeling and recall it, and we're going to recreate and simulate a more golf performance-like environment. So interleaving of technical stations is great. That helps create spacing, variability, and challenge. And dependent on the player's ability, that's how much you manipulate the space and the variability. Interleaving of games, serial practice, and then finally constraints-led learning. And in constraints-led learning, we must involve the kids in the game design, and we're trying, and they have to have a clear understanding of why we're playing this game and what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a game with the rules, where the rules will manipulate, where the child's behavior will respond to the rules that you're implementing. If we can do all of that, we create organized mess or systematic chaos. And yes, children, college players, tour players, they need reps, right? But not every rep is made equal. And the perception of I'm going to get reps to develop muscle memory is that's wrong. Muscle memory doesn't exist. Your muscles don't have memory. What we are trying to do, we're trying to get the brain to forget information and then learn to recall it. And if we're doing that with the goal of performing better, we need to be doing that in the environment that is going to be accessed, or as close to the environment as we possibly can. So we're looking at creating an organized mess or systematic chaos, so you get repetition without repetition.
Right.
And that was one from Dr. Timley. We've got to learn this picture as well. We have to help students adapt to the environment that they're put in. And too many just straightforward hitting balls on the range does not teach this level of adaptation that we can see from Tiger here. So I think that's it. Yeah, that's what I take our kids through. Not always to that, you know, higher level, but a lot of our kids at core, they'll be able to tell you about spacing, variability, and challenge. We have banned buckets. So when they go to the range, no buckets. They can only take a certain amount of balls at a time. And they'll lay the balls out. So they're allowed 10 balls, 5 and 5. They might go, coach, these 5 are sandwich drill, working on the wrist at the top of the swing. And then these 5 are full routine to a target, working on my breathing. And then I'll get 10 more. And the first 5 will be my technical using the sandwich drill. And the next 5, full routine to a target, awarding myself points or playing a game on the TrackMan range or whatever. And some kids resist it, some kids embrace it, and we roll from there.
Awesome.
Let me stop that share. I'll flip that onto YouTube and then send you the link.